What would you have done if you were Detective Hale? Would you have smashed the tablet or walked away? Tell us your answer below. And don't forget to subscribe for more cinematic stories like this one. The Missing Archaeologist. Did he know too much? Dr. Samuel Reed was a name that carried weight in academic circles. A world-renowned archaeologist with 2 best-selling books, dozens of high-profile digs under his belt, and a reputation for uncovering the impossible. His latest expedition, though, was something different. The whispers said he'd found something big, but no one knew exactly what. And then, just like that, he was gone. Vanished. The day before his disappearance, Dr. Reed had been seen leaving his apartment building in downtown Chicago, his battered leather satchel slung over his shoulder and an unmarked envelope tucked under his arm. The doorman said he looked anxious. The coffee shop barista remembered his hands shaking as he ordered his usual black coffee. And the security camera footage showed him walking briskly down Michigan Avenue, glancing over his shoulder every few steps, until he disappeared into the morning crowd. No one had seen him since. Have you ever watched someone walk out of your life, and felt that sinking feeling in your gut? That you'd never see them again? If you have, tell me in the comments. Because this story is just getting started. By the next morning, his research assistant, Lily Torres, was the first to notice something was wrong. He hadn't shown up at the university. He didn't answer her calls. And when she stopped by his apartment, the door was slightly ajar. The place was a mess. His meticulously organized shelves were overturned. Papers scattered across the floor. And in the center of his desk was a single ancient artifact, a stone tablet carved with strange, indecipherable symbols, and a note written in his unmistakable scrawl. Trust no one. Not even them. The Chicago Police Department assigned Detective Marcus Hale to the case by mid-afternoon. Hale had seen his share of missing persons, panicked runaways, quiet suicides, staged abductions, but something about this one already felt different. Lily Torres met him outside Dr. Reed's office, clutching her phone and looking pale. He would never just leave, she insisted, her voice trembling. He's obsessed with his work. Even on holidays, he'd come in here to catalog artifacts. Hale glanced around the office. Books and journals stacked ceiling-high. Maps with red strings connecting points around the globe. And that strange stone tablet sitting on the desk, half-wrapped in cloth. "What is that?" he asked, nodding toward the tablet. Lily hesitated. "It came in the mail last week. No return address. He told me not to touch it. Said it was dangerous." Hale frowned. "Dangerous how?" But Lily just shook her head. He wouldn't say. He just started acting paranoid. That evening, Hale pulled the security footage from Dr. Reed's apartment building. There he was, leaving with his satchel, glancing nervously over his shoulder. But something else caught Hale's eye. A man in a dark trench coat trailing a few steps behind. Tall, broad-shouldered, face hidden under the brim of his hat. The man stopped at the corner, watching as Reed disappeared into the crowd, then walked calmly back toward the building. "Who are you?" Hale muttered under his breath, rewinding the tape. "Have you ever had the feeling that someone was watching you? That uneasy tingle at the back of your neck, but when you turned around, no one was there? Share your experience in the comments. We'd love to hear your story." That night, Lily sat in her small studio apartment, staring at her phone. Her inbox was flooded with reporters asking for comment, colleagues from the university begging for updates, even strangers claiming to have seen Dr. Reed. But one email stood out. No sender name. No subject. Just a single line in the body of the email. "The truth is buried deeper than you think." And attached, a blurry photograph of Dr. Reed, crouched in a jungle somewhere, holding the same tablet in his hands. Lily's breath caught in her throat as she clicked the image larger. Because standing behind him, barely visible through the trees, was the same tall man in the trench coat. Watching. The next morning, Detective Hale found himself sitting in a cramped conference room with Lily and the university's dean. On the table between them lay the strange stone tablet, still wrapped partially in cloth, its carved symbols catching the morning light. "It's ancient," Lily explained softly, her fingers tracing the edge of the tablet but never touching the surface. "Older than anything he's ever brought back." He told me it didn't belong to any known civilization. Said it predated even Mesopotamia. Hale raised an eyebrow. So why keep it here? Why not turn it over to a museum? Lily hesitated. Because, she whispered, he was scared of it. Hale leaned back, arms crossed. Scared? Of a rock? Lily met his eyes then, and there was no trace of doubt in hers. He said it was a key, and some doors shouldn't be opened. Later that day, Hale got the university tech department to clean up the blurry jungle photo from Lily's mystery email. And sure enough, it was unmistakably Dr. Reed. The photo was dated 3 months ago, geotagged somewhere deep in the Peruvian rainforest. But what really chilled Hale wasn't the where. It was the who. Because standing in the shadows behind Reed was that same tall figure in the trench coat, watching, waiting, and in his hand was another tablet. Do you believe in coincidences? Or do you think sometimes things are connected in ways we can't see yet? Let us know in the comments. Because what happens next might change how you see everything. That night, Lily sat alone in her office, flipping through Dr. Reed's field journals. Most pages were covered in sketches, notes about pottery shards, burial sites, carbon dating figures. But the last entry stopped her cold. They found me. I can't stay here. If I don't make it back, tell them the truth is buried at Site 17. You'll know it when you see it. Trust no one. Below the words was a rough drawing of the same stone tablet. And a single symbol circled in red, a strange spiral that seemed to almost move as she stared at it. Meanwhile, across town, Hale sat in his car, parked outside an anonymous warehouse on the riverfront. He watched as 2 men in dark coats loaded a crate into the back of an unmarked van. On the side of the crate, the same spiral symbol burned into the wood. And as the van pulled away, one of the men turned and looked directly at Hale, even though the detective was parked half a block away, and smiled. Hale didn't even think. As the van's taillights disappeared around the corner, he threw his car into gear and followed. The warehouse district was nearly empty at this hour, just the soft hum of his tires on cracked asphalt and the faint red glow ahead of him. The van weaved through the streets like it knew exactly where it was going. No hesitation. No wrong turns. Then, suddenly, it stopped. Hale killed his headlights and coasted to a stop half a block back, watching as the 2 men got out and rolled the crate into yet another warehouse, this one even more run down than the last. The door slammed shut behind them, and the van sped off, leaving Hale alone in the silence. He stepped out of his car and approached the building. And then he heard it. A faint, rhythmic chanting from inside, low and guttural, like no language he'd ever heard before. He pressed his ear to the door. The key, awaken. The key, awaken. And then a single phrase, clear as day, made his blood run cold. Reed is the key. If you were standing there in the dark, hearing your missing person called the key in a strange ritual, would you open the door? Or turn back? Let me know in the comments. What would you do? Hale didn't wait for an answer. He drew his sidearm and kicked the door open. The chanting stopped instantly. Inside, a circle of hooded figures froze mid-ritual, all of them turning to face him at once. The crate lay in the center of the room, pried open, the stone tablet glowing faintly in the dim light. And next to it lay Dr. Reed, unconscious, bound at the wrists. Hale stepped forward, gun raised. Chicago PD. Don't move. But one by one, the hooded figures began to smile, as if they'd been waiting for him all along. One of them spoke. Detective Hale. Right on schedule. Hale froze. How do you know my name? The hooded figure stepped closer, pulling back his hood. It was the tall man in the trench coat. And he wasn't smiling anymore. Because, Detective, we've been watching you too. For a moment, the silence in the warehouse was deafening. Hale kept his weapon trained on the tall man, but his hand was beginning to tremble. You've been watching me, he demanded. The tall man gave a faint nod. Everything you thought you stumbled on, we let you find. The tablet, the symbols, even the van tonight. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Hale's grip tightened on his gun. Why? What do you want from me? Not from you, the man replied calmly. From him. He pointed to Dr. Reed, still lying motionless by the crate. He's the key. But it seems you've tangled yourself in the lock. Hale's mind raced as the hooded figures began to close in. You're insane, he spat. All this for what? A rock. Some weird old ritual. The tall man's expression darkened. That rock, detective, is older than your species. Older than your sun. And the ritual you mock will open the way to something you can't begin to imagine. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. And you're going to help us finish it. Hale shook his head, backing up a step. Not a chance. But before he could react, two of the figures moved lightning fast, grabbing his arms and wrenching the gun from his hand. Hale struggled, but they were too strong. Don't fight it, the tall man said softly. It's already begun. Have you ever had that moment, where everything you thought you knew turned upside down? When you realized you were part of something far bigger, and far darker, than you ever imagined? Tell me in the comments. Because for Hale, that moment was right now. The hooded figures dragged Hale to the center of the room and forced him to kneel next to Dr. Reed. One of them produced a knife, black as obsidian, and pressed the flat of the blade against Reed's chest. The stone tablet began to glow brighter, the symbols shimmering like fire. When the key bleeds, the tall man intoned, the door opens. Hale's eyes went wide. No, you can't. But before he could finish, Reed stirred. His eyes fluttered open. And to everyone's shock, he smiled. You fools, Reed croaked. You're the ones who've been played. All eyes snapped to Dr. Reed as his voice cut through the tension. You think I'm the key, he laughed hoarsely. You've been chasing the wrong man. The hooded figures froze. Even the tall man faltered, his cold confidence giving way to a flicker of doubt. What are you talking about? He demanded. Reed struggled to sit up despite his bindings, the faint glow of the tablet now pulsing in time with his heartbeat. This tablet doesn't open your door. It closes it. That's why I stole it. That's why I ran. Hale's eyes widened. You mean, you're trying to stop them? Reed nodded grimly. This ritual, it doesn't just open the way. It lets them in. The ones who came before. The ones who were buried for a reason. The tall man's calm facade cracked. Lies, he hissed, though his voice sounded almost afraid. We've followed the signs for generations. We know what we serve. Reed's laugh was bitter. You have no idea what you serve. The glow of the tablet grew blinding now, and the carved spiral at its center seemed to spin and twist of its own accord. Reed turned to Hale, his face grim but determined. You can stop this. Destroy the tablet. Hale looked at him like he was insane. That thing. It's like a bomb. What happens if I break it? Reed met his gaze and spoke just one word. Better. Imagine standing there, the fate of everyone in the room, maybe even more, in your hands. Would you smash it? Or would you hesitate? Tell me in the comments, what would you have done? The hooded figures lunged at Hale as he reached for the tablet. Hands grabbed at his arms, his shoulders, his collar, but he powered through, his fingers closing around the warm stone. And in one swift, desperate motion, he brought it down hard against the concrete floor. The tablet shattered into 1,000 glowing shards. What happened next would haunt him for the rest of his life. The room exploded in light. The hooded figures screamed, long, inhuman wails that echoed in Hale's skull. One by one, they disintegrated into nothing, shadows torn from reality, leaving only their empty robes behind. The tall man stumbled backward, clutching his head as he let out an unearthly howl. You fool! And then he too vanished, dissolving into dust and light. When the glow faded, only Hale and Reed remained, collapsed on the floor amid the shards. Hale's ears rang, his vision swam. What was that? He croaked. Reed smiled faintly, his eyes already closing. The door stays shut, thanks to you. And then, he went still. When the first rays of dawn cut through the broken windows of the warehouse, Hale sat alone in the silence. The air was heavy with dust and ash, the only trace of the hooded figures who'd been there hours ago. Reed lay beside him, still and cold, a faint smile frozen on his lips. The detective stared at what little remained of the shattered tablet, its fragments now nothing more than dull stone. And yet, somewhere in the back of his mind, he thought he could still hear the faint whisper of the chanting. The official report was thin. Missing archaeologist found dead, cause undetermined. No signs of struggle. No witnesses. No suspects. Hale knew better. But he also knew no one would believe the truth. So he kept it to himself. Lily came to collect Reed's journals later that week. She barely looked at Hale as he handed over the box, her fingers brushing briefly against his. "He saved us, didn't he?" she asked quietly. Hale didn't answer. He just nodded, and she walked away. That night, back in his own apartment, Hale sat at his kitchen table staring at a single page he'd torn from Reed's journal. The drawing of the spiral. Beneath it, Reed had scrawled 3 words. "It never ends." Hale turned the page over and stared at the faint impression of something written on the other side, words pressed so lightly into the paper he almost couldn't read them. But when he held it to the light, the message revealed itself. "They'll come for you next. So tell me, if you were Hale, would you run? Or would you wait? Would you try to fight what you don't understand, or hope it never finds you? Tell me in the comments, because some stories don't have an ending. They just wait for the next chapter. And if you don't want to miss the next chapter, make sure you subscribe. You never know what's waiting for you after dark.